So I'm gonna make sure that my weaver's wet. Now, I will tell you this, don't spray the ribs. They're there to be rigid. There might be some times when I tell you, oh, put a little bit here, just so that they grab good when you're separating them. Don't spray these, don't dunk them in water, because what'll happen is they're gonna lose their rigidity and you'll lose your shape, all right? We want ribs to be dry for the most part, okay? So what I'm gonna do here to anchor these tips is I'm gonna act like, for 2 rows, that's 1, 2, I didn't stick them in. Why do I do that? The reason that I do that is that anchors the tips so that when I come back on the 3rd row and start separating them into singles, I don't run around the house screaming and pulling my hair out because they start popping and or busting or fill in the blank. So I'm going to do this for 2 rows, and you can see I'm going to run out of weaver here too, so I'm going to show you how I add on a weaver, and I do not want to add on a weaver at the rim. So I'm going to cut this off here and grab a new weaver and show you what I do. The reason that you don't want to add it at the rim is because of that this thing going. If you don't have to overlap that, you don't want to. Alright, so basically what I'm going to do, and this is not the best place to do this either, let's back this up a little bit and do it here. Basically what we're going to do is just like any start and stop, you're going to go back under and tuck that in. Okay? Bring it down here so you don't see it, and away you go. So remember, I'm not splitting these guys yet. When you add ribs on a rib constructed basket, you need to add, for the most part, in an even amount. And I think we've talked about that too, how the little things that you can get away with not doing. Okay, so I feel good now. I've got a wet weaver and I'm coming around. I've got these guys anchored. So now I can start putting them all into singles. Okay. You notice when I weave, once again, I hold this and pull this way so that my tips aren't busting, and I'm still keeping it tight. You'll also notice that when I'm weaving, I weave at the point of the weave, here. I'm not looking for the end and saying, well, I've got a thread. That's needle and threading. We don't do that. Okay, we're weaving at the point of the weave, and then we pull it through. Makes it go a lot faster. Okay. So I'm going to do this for, into singles for 2 rows. That's 1, 2, and then I'm going to look at it and see if I need to do a little bit more weaving, or if I can add some more ribs. Always a fun thing. And I think right now we're okay. The other thing you notice is that when I'm weaving, I pull down on the weave. Okay. If I've got a rib that is a little bit too low and it needs to come out because I don't want a piano key, I'll hold that, or I'll bring this up, push that one down, and start flattening that out. All these little tips and tricks, and when you're weaving, don't think, well, that's not a big deal right now. I don't need to worry about that. I'll worry about that later. Wrong thought. In basketry, there is no waiting. Fix it now. Or at least start working on fixing it now. Okay? Because whatever the problem is, it's going to get worse, not better. Okay. I feel pretty good about him right now. Let's take a look about my shape. Yeah, that looks pretty good right now. So these guys are, I want to keep them straight up and down. So if they start going slantwise, then I'm going to come over and pull those in. But I'm liking the shape right now, so I'm going to go over and work on the other side. And then we'll add some more ribs. Okay, so you can see that we got ribs. So it's the same process again as what we started with our second. This is our last set of ribs. There, I might have to put a couple here, you know, as I get more space in there. But other than that, this is pretty much it. So there's a couple things that's got to happen. One of the things is that we need to start doing turnbacks here. What we want is when we get completely to the center of this, we want this straight from this rib here. Let's try to get up a little higher. From this rim, false rim, right? All the way across the bottom, and to the other side, we want it to be a straight line. Well, that's not going to happen if you keep going in a half circle with your weave. So, what we're going to do, and actually this should probably be a longer weaver, but that's all I have wet at the moment, so we're going to go with that. Alright, so long weaver. There's a couple places that you need a long weaver in this basket. The handle's a good place for a long weaver, and the center part that we're going to do next is a good place as well. So roughly, find the center. You want to put it underneath that bottom part of the handle. Okay. So, and this doesn't make any difference which side you do, but this is the way I do it. So, okay, now you can see what I'm doing. Center part. On my right, what I'll do is I'm going to weave this. I'm going to call this to the top. This one I'm going to weave to the bottom. You can do the opposite. It doesn't make any difference. Just do one going up and one going down. So what I'm trying to do is I'm going to firm up, basically I'm going to firm up the weavers on this and make sure everything is copacetic. And I'm looking right now as I weave this, I can see this guy is way bunched out. It's hard for you to see it, but I can see it's way bunched out. I'm going to have to make some adjustments here. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to do about 3 rows of weaving. And I can tell I can't do that until all these are in. So nix that idea. And let's do turnbacks. How's that? Okay, so the reason that we're nixing that idea is because I really need to have all my ribs in, and see how I got this really big gap here? Gotta have some more in there. And I don't want to keep shoving those in. So I am gonna do some turnbacks until I got a little bit of room to do that. Okay. So, I still got a little bit of weaver on here. When I'm doing this, you always want to make sure that your weaver's wet. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to fill in this area here. I'm trying to like square, this is like a half round. I'm trying to make this more of a rectangle. Okay? The way that I do that is by doing turnbacks. So as I come up here, and I'm looking for my first rib that I may be able to turn back on. So I'm looking here for where it drops, where I can turn on top of. And it always needs to be on top of. So that would be this one here. That's the first place that I can turn on top of one where it drops. What I'm trying to do is level that line out. Okay? So I'm going to turn on this rib, but instead of turning here and coming back, I'm going to turn to the inside of that. I know we talked about this before. The reason you do that is so you don't get a hole when you go past it again. Okay. All right, and then I just come back. This is not real wet, and it's a little thick, so. Now, normally what I would do is I would turn here and go back, but I really need to have a little bit more woven space in here so I can get these last two stakes in here. So for right now, I'm not going to do that. And actually I'm going to end right here so that I can add on a weaver, not on the rim. I guess I'll take my really long weaver and use it by cutting it first. So I'm going to back this up so it doesn't show where I started or where I ended. And go. And I think if I do like maybe 3 rows in here, then I'll have enough room to put those last 2 sets in. And then I'll be done with all the ribs. Okay, so I'm going to come back up here. Now, when you do turn backs, remember it has to be every other stake because you can only turn when you're on top of a stake, right? So, let's take a look at this. This was my first turn back, so that means here's a turn back. Here's one. I'm going to turn every other stake, right? So I'm going to turn on this one, and I'm going to pull it to the inside, not the outside. And pull that down. Okay. And I'm going to come to the rim on this side one more time. Remember, my whole point in doing this at this particular juncture is to give me some more space in here so I can get those last 2 ribs woven in and do turn backs at the same time. So I'm coming back here. Here's my last turn back. It's got to skip one. It's going to be a turn on this one. Turn to the inside. Okay. So I'm going to go down here one more time, and then actually I'm going to weave over to the other side and do the same thing on it. And then I can put those last 2 ribs in. So when I weave over here, you'll see I'm going to weave right on top of those turn backs. And then there are no holes showing. Is that slick or what? I got a shred, but there's no holes. Okay, so then I'm going to come over here and do the same thing on this side. Remember, my whole point in being is I'm trying to get enough woven space in here to add these last 2 ribs. And this is what I started out with. You can do that, but it makes it a little bit easier if you got a little bit more room to weave in. So that's what we're at this point. All right, so we've got all the ribs in now, all the ribs in. So we're gonna do the centerpiece. So I've got a long one, or as long as I can find, that I'm gonna start in the center. So I've found the halfway point of it. And I want it underneath here. So this is just how I do it. You don't have to do it this way, but the right side I'll weave to the top of the basket, and the left side I'll weave to the bottom. And all I'm trying to do at this point is solidify that I've got the ribs spaced right. And if I don't, I need to make an adaptation. How's that? Looking at this one right here, I can say it's a good guess that that one is too long because it needs to be in between these two, and right now it's past this one. So I got to see where I can pull and make a change. So actually this is kind of dry, so it's going to pull right out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that rib out, and I'm going to take my awl and put it in the weave to hold it. Okay, and then I'm going to trim this up about an inch or ½ inch, and then I'm going to stick it back down in here and remove that. And like I say, this works easier if you've let it dry, and I'm just getting back to it. So and then now that looks a little bit better. Okay, and you can really tell this when you're going through and doing the center strip. You think, whoa, that ain't right. Okay, so I'm going to come straight down, and this is a little loosey-goosey until you get about 3 rows woven up, but it tightens up easy. So I'm going to come all the way down here, just like, you know, normal, and I'm going to go around this guy, and then I'm going to go back. And let's see, I guess I should have moved that other side first, but I didn't. Okay, well, so it's kind of loose, but you can see what's going to happen here. It gives me a really good idea of how my shape looks and if I need to do any adjusting, and it also guarantees that when I get to the end of the basket and it's all wove up, it's straight across at the center point. And it shows me all the turnbacks that I get to do. This side, this one might be a little bit long here too. A little bit long, not bad. So we're going to do that same thing. I'm going to pull that out, and I'm going to hold that weave with an awl so it doesn't go ravel out on me, for lack of a better term. I'm going to cut off in this case, maybe 1/4 of an inch. Like I say, it's easy to go back and trim stuff up. It's more difficult to try to make it grow longer when you've cut it too short. So I'm going to put that in there. It's pretty good. Okay. Same thing here. I'm going to weave it out to the rim and then come back. And like I say, if this is a little loose, or more loose than you want it, don't worry about it, because you can always, this is just kind of like, what do I want to say? It's almost temporary. When you get down to the point where you're really tightening it up, you know, and you want it nice and firm, we can go back and do that. Pretty easy, because we're not going to do a whole bunch of weave here, but we are going to do enough to make sure that it's set well. And usually about, well, maybe an inch of weave does it. I'm still not absolutely certain that I like that, so we'll wait and see. And I've got a twist here. So, I didn't want to twist. Let's see if I can work that out. Don't have to pull it all out. well, part of it anyway. So, because I got that twist, I'm going to back this out a little bit. But anyways, you get the idea of what I'm trying to do here. I'm going to go ahead and fix my twist. And I'm going to get about an inch worth of weave done on the center. And then I'm going to show you what that looks like. That's next.